Yo, oh, what is good, everybody? Welcome back to another video. As promised, I got you guys with my top Descendant tier list. And yes, I'm talking about from number 25 all the way down to number 1. I told you I was going to do it and you didn't believe me, but here it is. So before we start the video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. It helps boost this video so I can continue doing stuff like this for you guys. And plus, you want to be a part of the awesome content that I have. Don't forget to turn on that post notification so that you know when I upload a video. And if you have any suggestions of videos you want me to do, just go ahead and drop it down in that comment section below so that I can know. I do respond to comments, so please don't feel afraid to write a comment. And if you write a negative comment, don't run. I'm gonna be there. If you write a positive comment, I'm gonna be there. But that's enough of that. Before I actually start this list, I do want to point out a couple of things. This list is my tier list, and I don't want to be rude when I say this, but I know some people are going to get this confused. This tier list is how I think each character ranks amongst their peers. This is based off my playthrough. I know there's going to be some people that's going to be like, what do you mean you didn't put this character over that character? This tier list is trash. Oh my gosh, I would have never put that Descendant over that person. Listen, chill. Trust me, it's gonna be okay. This is based off my experience, my playthrough through this game. I would never discredit your tier list and what you think a Descendant needs to be ranked, because that's based off your playstyle, your experience, and how you play the game. With that being said, my playstyle, I am run and gun. If you've been following me for a long time, you know I've been playing this game since the release. Heck, even before the release, I was playing this game during the beta and alpha stages. You know that I don't necessarily play the support role, and I don't necessarily play the defensive role. With that being said, that does not necessarily mean I don't like defensive or support role characters. What I'm saying is that I will prefer more of a run and gun ho character. So if you're ever questioning why I put a Descendant over another one, just remember that I am gun ho. I'm going to play the character that seems more fun to me. But with that being said, let's get into this tier list.
The Vulgus can't see me. Why? Because I exist in their blind spot.
So somebody has to be at the bottom of the list, and unfortunately Sharon is just going to have to be there for me. Her 4 skills are a cutoff beam, active camouflage, shock nuts, void domination, with a passive skill of assassinator. So with her passive skill, pretty much killing an enemy by using a skill resets the active camouflage cooldown. This effect grants the cooldown when attacking, increases damage against enemies who are not targeting the caster. For me, the main thing about Sharon is that she really doesn't have any good useful skills other than the fact that we can go camouflage, and I'll talk about the reason why. That's pretty much it. There's not really any good useful point in me playing with her. I also don't have fun when I do play with her. Using camouflage in a normal battle really doesn't do anything for you. To me, as far as the benefits that the camouflage will give you, there really is none, because even though the enemies don't detect you no more, you still have to fight them in order to complete the mission. And if you want the material and the weapon parts or whatever you're farming for the mission, you have to attack. So yeah, the enemies don't detect you for a certain period of time, but it doesn't do anything when you have to attack them anyways. So her most useful skill when attacking the enemies is her shock nuts. With her shock nuts, once she hits the enemy with it, it pretty much confuses them, leaving them vulnerable to attack. The only problem that I really have with this is that it only works on normal enemies, so it doesn't really work on bosses or even avoid intercept bosses. But I do know that you can level it up in order for it to start working on them. But still, that's just not enough for me to put her on top of somebody else. So unfortunately, like I said earlier, somebody has to be at the bottom, and Sharon just has to be that one. I do want to preface this by saying that there are many different mods that you can put on Sharon, and not just Sharon, but every Descendant to make them better. But my thing is, for the most part, mods only amplifies the skills that the Descendants already have. Now, there are some mods that completely changes the skill in which a Descendant has, but I feel like as far as Sharon mods, they don't really change the way that her skills work, and to me they don't really impact her in such a way that I would want to move her above in the list. So with her being ranked 25, I wouldn't necessarily say that this is a for sure kind of thing. With my list, I do believe that the lowest 5 ranking characters are interchangeable depending on where you might look at, but in terms of this video here, I'm going to have to put Sharon at the bottom. She just has too many flaws for me to overlook it, and the fact that she has an ultimate version just makes it even more worse for her, because her ultimate version is just her but better. I think her ult takes way too long to use, and then the fact that I feel like you have to pair it with her camouflage in order for you to use it properly is just, it's not making her case any better. And this is my main problem that I have with Sharon. I don't see how her character functionality is benefiting me playing her when I'm mobbing or even when I'm boss farming. Sharon has one of the worst skill sets when it comes to mobbing, and it's even worse when it comes to boss farming, which is a really big problem when most of this game is mobbing and boss farming. And the fact that I can't find a normal need to play her is a really big problem. But don't get me wrong, Sharon does have her perks. There are some missions in which Sharon will get double the rewards. I also know that you have to use her for infiltration missions, but the problem that I have is that to me, she's just not a good Descendant to play with. And I really don't want to make it sound like I'm talking down on her, but I just don't enjoy playing with her. I feel like she just has a lot of flaws as far as her skill set and what she can do, and to me it's just not an enjoyable experience whenever I have to use her. And to be honest, if I didn't have to infiltrate with her, I would never use her, which is ultimately the main reason why Sharon is so low. It's because I really wouldn't use her. To try to rank her above somebody else, if I had to put 2 and 2 together, I probably would not ever use Sharon had it not been for these infiltration missions. And also the fact that she has an ultimate version, it really isn't any point in me using her at all.
You don't build a reputation. You exploded!
Number 24. I still don't know how to say his name. I think it's Ezimo. So Ezimo, I don't know how to say it. His pretty much abilities are Time Bomb, which fires a sticky time bomb forward and attaches to an enemy or terrain on contact. His next ability is Blast, which detonates the attached time bombs. Damage dealt increases with the number of attached time bombs. His next one is Guided Landmine, which basically he places a landmine, with his last skill being a creative explosion. He pretty much just runs forward at something or someone and pretty much explodes on it. He does have a passive skill called Advantageous Habits, which he drops a bomb on the ground when he is hit. Ezimo really has a great backstory. The smelly kid in school now turned into the ticking time bomb lately. The reason why Ezimo is so low on this list, it pretty much comes down to his abilities. I don't like the fact that 2 of his abilities are needed in order to use one ability. One ability throws the bomb on the ground and the other one detonates it, which just makes one ability useless. With Ezimo's destructive style is pretty much wasted with his abilities. I think that he's a really cool character. He just lacks the abilities to show it. Also, the fact that he's just not a team player at all. If they could have just found some way to make that happen, I think he would be a lot higher on this list, because this really hurts me that I have to put him this low. Whenever I was doing his leveling run, I was having a lot of fun while playing him, but I just couldn't get over the fact that he could have been a lot better. Out of all of the characters that are on the first Descendants, Ezimo is definitely one of the more wasted ones. Ezimo doesn't really benefit the team all too much. They didn't give him a significant boost in the weapons or abilities, and I feel like that's just much wasted because he is an explosive character. I mean, come on, the man makes bombs from his sweat. Ezimo isn't too bad when it comes to farming, and he definitely isn't too bad when it comes to mobbing. Ezimo does have pretty decent mob control. I won't say it's the best, but it definitely gets the job done. He can place his mine on the ground and detonate it whenever it's needed, so if you're able to time it right, then that's just perfect. But like I said, it's not really the best. It could be a whole lot better. His final ability is really hard to control. You almost have to line yourself up and run directly at somebody. But even still, when you hit somebody, he continues to run and he doesn't stop. And that's really unfortunate, because I feel like with just 1 or 2 tweaks, Ezimo will be one of the top characters in this game. This just comes down to a lack of abilities for me. I do strongly believe that Ezimo should have been one of the starter characters for people, because he's a really great example of how players can get used to Descendant abilities, can get used to the game without having to feel like they wasted time farming for his materials and waited for him to be crafted. I really do wish that when they come out with Ultimate Ezimo, that they tweak his abilities to just make him a little bit more better, because Ezimo could easily be a top 10 character on this list. But unfortunately today, Ezimo, you're at number 24.
With my strength, I will pull everything towards me, even the final victory.
Number 23. Kyle. So with Kyle abilities, he has a repost dash. Pretty much is, as you see in the video, him just charging forward with his magnetic shield to knock back and kill enemies. He also has a magnetic bulwark, I think I'm saying that right, which creates a barrier in front of him and your teammates to be able to block bullets. His third ability is a magnetism sport, which is pretty much, if you've seen Black Panther, how he stores up kinetic energy and then releases it, it's pretty much the exact same thing. And his last ability is him flying around and he drops bombs while he's flying around, and then he slams into the ground at the end. It's called superconductive bombing. His passive skill is experienced technician, which max amount of magnetic force increases proportionally to the max shield. When shield is fully consumed, gains magnetic care. This effect has a cooldown. Magnetic force gradually decreases while out of combat. For some people, this might be a shocker, but for most, I think it fits perfectly. Kyle being at 23 will probably make the most sense to most people. The main reason why Kyle is a lot higher on this list above Ezimo and Sharon is because of his magnetic barrier. It actually does something for the team. It lets you be able to control mobbing while giving the team something to hide behind. I do believe that the team that you have with Kyle can either make him useful or not useful. Like, just imagine if you have an Ajax and a Eugen on your team. Ajax for extra protection, Eugen for healing, and then you got Kyle, a magnetic barrier that you can also move around with. And then the fourth is the one that's dealing the most damage, like a left dick or something like that. For the most part, the reason why Kyle is so low on this list for me is mostly because of playstyle. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, my playstyle is mostly run and gun. I always want to be the person that does the highest DPS and be able to move around. And just based off Kyle's abilities, he's more of a defensive Descendant, but I also think his base abilities are just great for what he is. And for the most part, I do believe that his abilities fit him perfectly. I really couldn't put Kyle higher than other characters, because if I had to compare him to other characters and who I would pick, I would choose other characters over him. And I hate to say that in a way that will make Kyle sound bad, because I don't think Kyle is a bad Descendant at all. Because like I said earlier, I do believe that Kyle will be a lot higher on other people's lists, and I wouldn't be mad at that. It's just that for me, Kyle isn't the right character. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. Kyle is another one of those Descendants that I believe that if you were to tweak one or two things about his character, he will be a lot higher on this list. And the easiest way that I can portray this is that Kyle is pretty much a lesser version of Ajax. I think that Ajax does everything that Kyle does a lot better and stronger. And that's just basically off the simple fact of mobbing and boss runs and what the team wants and needs. And ultimately, I think that Ajax would be a better fit for the team over Kyle. Now, you have to imagine this list is pretty much me putting Descendants over other Descendants on who I would play mostly. And unfortunately, we have better Descendants. Had Ajax not been in this game, I think Kyle will be ranked a lot higher than he is now. But unfortunately for Kyle, we do have Ajax.
Are you excited to be here at my show? Hope you all enjoy it and have fun.
Number 22. Luna. Luna 4 skills are stage presence, which allows you to equip the unique weapon. While it's equipped, it pretty much pops up this notes that you see on the screen, and if you shoot those notes while in rhythm, you get power-ups. I will say, for the most part, I still don't understand Luna's ability to the fullest, so I'm pretty much just going to read it as it is in the description. So it equips a unique weapon. It will be unequipped when MP is fully depleted or all bullets have been fired. When the unique weapon is activated, notes activated, allowing the use of skills. Notes can be hit through shooting and skill use. If the skill button is not pressed at the right time, the skill will fail to activate. Failing to hit notes through shooting significantly decreases MP. Successfully hitting notes grants perfect pitch. Perfect pitch decreases when a note is missed or incorrectly entered. So the rest of her 3 skills only activates if you hit it during stage presence, meaning that you have to use stage presence to even unlock the other 3 abilities. Her second ability is exciting act. Pretty much grants exciting performance to self, grants exciting sound to allies within range. When using the enhanced skill, increases the effects further. So we get exciting performance to ourselves, which is skill power modifier increases, and it grants exciting sound to allies, which is skill power increase, which is your max MP times 3.5% for me. Now, there are mods in which you can upgrade this to make this better, so I'm not going to really go too deep into the actual statistics on it, but that's what it does. Her third ability is relaxing act. It grants a relaxing performance to self. Relaxing performance recovers MP when hitting enemies while hitting notes. It grants a relaxing sound to allies within range. When using an enhanced skills, it increases the effects further. So what is relaxing sound? MP recovery amount is the max MP times 0.7 per 1 second. And then relaxing performance is MP recovery amount, which is 0.8% that I have for her right now. Her final one is cheerful act. Cheerful act grants cheerful performance to self. Cheerful performance acquires inspiration gauge when hitting enemies while hitting notes. Grants cheerful sound to allies within range, and same thing, while it enhanced skill increases the effects further when using a skill. So the main thing about this is what it does for your allies. So cheerful sound does cooldown decrease by 10% that I have. Once again, there are mods that you can use to make this even higher, but it does cooldown decrease. And for you, you pretty much just have to keep hitting this so that your allies can get a cooldown decrease. Her passive skill is nimble footsteps. When using a skill to hit a note, inspiration gauge goes up. When inspiration gauge maxes out, the enhanced skill can be used. Using this enhanced skill completely depletes the inspiration gauge. While out of combat for a certain period of time, the inspiration gauge is completely depleted. When using a skill to buff allies, it grants self-valence, which self-valence is all of this: duration, max stacks, required stacks, movement speed increase per stack, and skill range increase per required stack. So it pretty much does all that. So if she does all that, why is she so low? The reason why Luna is so low for me is once again, it's just based off how I play. Luna just doesn't fit my playstyle for me, but I do think that she's a great Descendant. Whenever she moves around, you hear this playlist that's inside of your headphones, and it just sounds amazing. Look, just listen, just listen. I think that the creators did a great job when designing Luna and how everything just fits for what she is. Unfortunately for me, she just doesn't fit my playstyle. I think that she's unique in how she uses her abilities. I think that is really cool how you have to have this interactive thing to even make her abilities work. I mean, just look at this. You're pretty much hitting shots on note. And I do believe for the most part, if you have ADHD, Luna is the best character for you, because even though I don't necessarily believe that Luna's playstyle is for me, when I was doing her level 40 run, I was having so much fun using her. I mean, just making sure I was trying to hit shots on key was just so much fun for me. So once you have her unique weapon out, you can see here that all the rest of her abilities are now available for you to use. And at any point, you can now use these abilities, but you want to use them on key, because if you use them on key, it grants a buff to the skill that you're using, which not only makes the skill more powerful, but it just adds to her unique character ability. All in all, just making it more fun and interactive. And just hear me out. For the most part, the reason why Luna is so low on my list for me is because she's a team player. Oh, being a team player is actually a good thing. Listen, I'm not saying that being a team player is a bad thing. You need a team to even make her abilities even worth it, because without a team, her abilities only buff you, and your abilities can only do buffs to other people. I think Luna's Descendant is pretty complicated, not only with just trying to hit her notes on point, because with enough practice, you can get that down and you can do it without even having to think about it. But at the same time, she is very complicated to use while you're by yourself, which brings up my main problem that I have with Luna. The main problem that I have with Luna is that her unique weapon just doesn't do enough damage to enemies, which is very frustrating because you have to use her unique weapon for every other one of her abilities. And with the gun not being as powerful as your standard gun that you're using, it almost makes it a hassle to use her abilities. And I do believe that the developers actually messed up on this. I think that her unique weapon should have the main properties as the gun that she's holding, or at least just keep the damage that the gun that you're holding when using the unique weapon will transfer over to the unique weapon. Like for instance, if you're using your unique weapon ability while holding your weapon that you have in slot 1, the damage that your weapon does in slot 1 should just transfer over to your unique weapon. With certain builds and certain teams, you can have Luna be very useful, which is why I don't have her at the bottom, because you can use her in the right setting and the right people. But with First Descendants being so new, I don't think that you will find the right people necessarily that will typically know what to do with her. I think that the concept of Luna is very cool, but in reality, it just doesn't work. And that's just because how the game is. I don't think that most people would be using her, and especially not me when it comes to boss runs or farming, just off the simple fact that she has no mobbing abilities, or even that if I use her or if she's on a team that I'm a part of, that people would necessarily know exactly what to do with her, which makes it really hard when you're trying to run solo. I do think that with the addition of the Abyss Intercept bosses, that Luna would be a great addition to a team, only if you have 3 other people on the team that does high DPS with their abilities, because being that she can grant skill cooldowns and skill buffs to them, which will make their abilities a lot stronger and allow them to use their abilities a lot more frequently, it only makes sense that Luna will be able to fit in on a team of that caliber. But this list is about who I would use, and though I would use Luna given that I was on a team that needed Luna, I just don't see Luna as someone that I would prefer to use, especially if I had to choose between who to use. And unfortunately, Luna rank just comes down to lack of teamwork, because randoms do not understand teamwork, and just based off Luna's abilities and functionalities, she's probably one of the worst solo characters you can use.
Commencing turret synchronization operation.
Number 21. Jaber. Jaber's 4 skills are Assault Turret, which summons an Assault Turret, pretty much self-explanatory. His second skill is Medical Turret, which summons a Medical Turret, which pretty much recovers the HP of all of your allies that are within the zone. I like this skill because it actually operates as a double skill. If you attack the Medical Turret with your weapon, it turns into a Taunting Turret or a Taunting Zone, which your enemies are going to be distracted by the turret itself. His third skill is a Turret Engineering, which pretty much as you use the skill, it's going to recover the HP of your turrets that you have summoned on the battlefield and increase their duration. His final ability detonates all the summoned turrets that you have on the field, granting overhaul. The self-destruction releases multiple fragments around, dealing explosive damage. His passive skill is Turret Sync. When both turrets are summoned, it grants Turret Sync. Turret Sync increases firearm attack and skill power increase. For the most part, Jaber is a really good character. He has solid abilities, which does great as far as healing the team. He also has abilities that he can use to distract mobs for mobbing. I think every one of his abilities pretty much works with each other how it's supposed to work, and with adding the right mods to Jaber, his abilities just only become stronger. I think that he's a really good all-around character, and if I see somebody using Jaber, I wouldn't necessarily get mad with them if they're on my team. I know what Jaber brings to the table, and I know that for the most part Jaber is going to help the team out. Jaber does fit my playstyle, which is why I have him so high up on the list and not lower. And the fact that Jaber can operate as someone who's on the front line and someone on the back line just makes it even better. He can be that person that heals your team, and he can also be the person that sets up deterrents for enemies to attack and for them to be distracted with. Jaber really doesn't have anything that I would tweak with him. Then you might be asking yourself, it sounds like I only really have praises for Jaber. Why is he so low on my list if that's the case? And that just comes with the fact that there are other Descendants that are better than him. And you might be thinking, well, 20 other Descendants, you know, that one is arguable. I think I had to put him so low subjectively because I know that there's an ultimate version of him that's going to be coming out, and honestly I don't think I really felt too comfortable putting him over any of the ultimate Descendants. Now that may be very subjective to you, but I'm here to just tell you, listen, if I don't feel comfortable doing something, I'm just not going to do it. With that being said, I do believe that when Ultimate Jaber comes out, he's going to be a top 10 character, if not a top 5 character, but we'll see what they do with him when they make him. When comparing multiple characters to Jaber, it just comes evident that the characters that I have above him, I just would use a lot more than I would use him. And I don't think there's anything wrong with just saying that there's a character that just isn't for me. And there's nothing wrong with the character. There's nothing that I would necessarily change about the character. They just aren't that special to me. And I'm just gonna have to wait until Ultimate Jaber comes out to be able to redo this list.
Let me tell you how I managed to come back from the ruins.
Number 20, Ajax. Ajax 4 abilities are Orbit Barrier, which pretty much is a barrier that blocks shots, but when it's up, it does inflict reflection damage on enemy. When using enhanced skill, enhanced reflection damage, which is a really cool thing because as they're shooting the barrier, they're getting damaged themselves. His next ability is Void Walk, which he just launches up in the air and smashes down. If he doesn't end up killing them on the smash, it does inflict stun damage to them. His third ability is Void Explosion, which deals damage to nearby enemies and gain Void Explosion explosion to enhance charge sub attack, which means that it does damage and knockback. And then if you hit him with your F key or your melee key, it does increase damage to that attack. His fourth and final ability is Hyper Q, which pretty much creates a barrier around him that blocks damage. The barrier does increase in stats proportionally to Ajax stats. Ajax passive skill is Event Horizon. When the skill ends, grants void energy. The amount of void energy determines the singularity effect. When void energy is at a maximum, uses an enhanced skill. When using an enhanced skill, grants additional effects to the existing skill. Cannot gain void energy while using enhanced skill, and void energy is consumed if out of combat. So on the right there, you can see all the singularity effects that it does. And how this works is that as you're using skill, it builds up this bar. Once the bar is fully filled, your skills become blue. And when you use a skill that's blue, it enhances effects that you see. Oh, Ajax at number 20. Oh my gosh. How could Ajax be so low? Ajax is a really good character. Yes, I know Ajax is a really great character. And the reason why Ajax is at number 20 is only because we have Ultimate Ajax. Now, without going too in depth on Ultimate Ajax, because I will end up using the same lines as far as when I get to where his rank is, Ajax is pretty much a very solid character. I think that Ajax is an all-around good character to use as far as abilities. I also do believe that Ajax is a great team player, and for the most part, I don't think I've ever gotten mad whenever I seen that somebody had an Ajax on the squad versus another character. Depending on how you build your Ajax, Ajax can either be a tanky build, or you can be a high DPS build, or you can use something that's in the middle where he's both. I think his abilities work very well. I don't think there really needs to be too much of a tweak to his ability. I do have one gripe that I have with Ajax, and maybe it's just me, maybe other people deal with this too, but for the most part, I don't like how enemies can just walk through his shield unscathed. I believe that his shield should block out enemies as well. It's just a little thing, it's not really too much of a deal breaker that I have with him or without him. But at the same time, I don't like the fact that enemies can pretty much just walk through his shields. I do wish whenever you use his launch ability that it would be a lot better to control. I think that once you're in the air, you get the one jump and then that's it. But you'll just become a lot better while using it with practice. As far as team play, I feel like Ajax is really good with defense. And while you might say that Ajax does deserve a higher place, even though he has an ultimate version, I have to once again remind you of my main play style. And though Ajax can be used for more attacking and stuff like that, his main purpose is defense, and there are just other characters that I would use over Ajax. I wouldn't be mad if I had an Ajax on my team. I mean, I actually do prefer an Ajax on my team, but as far as me playing with him, it's just not my play style, and I wouldn't want to have to use a character that's not really his main play style to try to fit my play style. Other than tweaking that one minor thing with Ajax, I think that all of his abilities are great. I think they're perfect and they fit for him. I think they all pretty much end up working with each other as well. Even while doing boss runs, I don't really have anything to complain about while using him. I think the main thing that Ajax doesn't have is anything that does any type of buffs to your guns, which doesn't really make him the perfect defensive character in my eyes. One of the things that I do like about Ajax, and I feel like it's really praised amongst the whole community, is the fact that he's so tanky. Ajax has the highest health margin amongst all the Descendants, and I think that fits perfect for him being such a defensive tank. Ajax should be the last person that goes down on your squad, and the fact that he has his abilities that be able to block bullets, he's able to block bullets while picking up people, which just adds to how perfect that he is. Had Ajax not had an ultimate version, Ajax would be a lot higher on this list. As I'm going higher and higher on this list, I have to ask myself what is most important in putting one Descendant over another Descendant, and for the most part, the thing that's most important is playstyle. If you're ever questioning why I'm putting these Descendants in this order, just remember my playstyle. I am gun-ho, I want to kill as much as I can, and I'm the one that wants to have the highest DPS amongst the squad. So please, please, please just keep that in mind.
The most important things on the battlefield. Supplies and support, naturally.
Number 19. Enzo. The support specialist Enzo. His first ability is Supply Firearm Enhancer. So he summons a buff supplying device at the designated location, supplies a buff to allies that approach the buff supply device. The buff supplying device can be used once by each ally and disappears when everyone has used it or its duration ends. I do know with certain mods that you can switch the buff that it gives. I have right now currently on Enzo is that it does a weak point damage increase and firearm crit hit rate increase. His second skill is Explosive Drone. It launches a explosive drone forward. The explosive drone explodes on contact with enemy or terrain, dealing burst damage. His third skill is Enhanced Combat Suit, which summons a shield recovery cons. When a shield recovery cons is first summoned, it recovers the shield and grants Enhanced Combat Suit. His last and final skill is Perfect Support, which summons a supply drop ship to himself and allies. The small supply ship provides supply bullets and grants perfect support to allies. The small supply ship attacks enemies in front, and when the skill ends, it fires a missile forward that causes a big explosion. Enzo's passive skill is Fire Supporter. It grants fire support to allies within an area around itself. Fire support effect enhances when same Descendant is present within a party or squad. Efficiency increases when Enzo disarms the security of the encrypted vault. The rewards increase when this happens, which is one reason and one main reason why Enzo is as high as he is. I can get to that a little later. The fact that Enzo is purely support makes him a great teammate to have on your squad. His first ability that does increase firearm crit rate is great, especially when you're using weapons that have high firearm critical attack. Not only does it buff you, it also buffs your teammates as well. His second ability, which fires missiles forward, is just fun to use in my opinion. When using Enzo, you do want to focus a lot on his shields because his third ability does heal your shields, so it's only right that you do have shield for him to use, because that just gives you a lot more shield on top of the shield that you have currently. Now moving on to the reason that makes Enzo a lot higher on this list. Whenever you're doing any type of encryption vaults are a lot easier with Enzo. Not only is the time slower, it also makes it a lot easier to do whenever you have to time your clicks. You do get increased drops whenever you're using Enzo, so it's a lot better to use Enzo or have somebody on Enzo on your squad whenever you're doing these encrypted vaults. But it's going to make your life so much easier if you have Enzo when doing these encrypted vaults, because you need Enzo in order to be able to get the materials that you need to craft Descendants and weapons. For the most part, Enzo is a lot more useful than all of these other Descendants in my opinion when it comes to gathering materials and stuff like that. And the fact that Enzo is and more of a support role just boosts him up a lot higher on this list other than somebody of the same caliber. I think really the only good thing that Sharon does is get that Morphosis materials for infiltration. But with Enzo, not only are you using him for encrypted vaults, you're also using him for support, and his support isn't bad. His support is really good to have on a team, and I can fully see someone having Enzo as their main character, and I wouldn't even be mad at that. I do think that there are better characters other than Enzo to use, but to have an Enzo on your team, especially if they're built right, isn't the worst thing in the world that can happen. There's a way that you could build Enzo so that his first ability, when he drops his supply crate, that it can actually replenish your supplies, as in you would never run out of bullets, which is actually really helpful on these void intercept battles when they're not dropping as much ammo as you need. There's a real big reason why Enzo is a lot higher on this list than Sharon, and once Ultimate Enzo drops, he's going to be a whole lot higher on this list altogether.
The Vulgus can't see me. Why? Because I exist in their blind spot.
Number 18. Ultimate Sharon. So I won't go through all of Ultimate Sharon's skills because it's the same skills as her normal state, but I will say that for the most part, Ultimate Sharon is a lot higher than normal Sharon, for the simple fact that it's pretty much Sharon, but all of her stats are buffed, which makes it so that Ultimate Sharon is a lot better than normal Sharon. Now I think that this ultimately contributes to the fact why I was okay with putting normal Sharon at the bottom. It's because she had an ultimate version of her. While all the bad things that I said about normal Sharon still applies to Ultimate Sharon, I can't discredit how much stronger her stats is compared to her normal version of her. Now I will say that Enzo and Ultimate Sharon, they can be switched. At any point I would have been comfortable putting Enzo at 18 and putting Ultimate Sharon at 19. I believe that what made my deciding factor now would be just the ultimate skin is a lot better than Enzo's normal skin. Oh, so you're a goner? That's the only reason why you put her over him? No, it is not. Once again, this list is simply based off of who I would play more over the other character. I would play Ultimate Sharon over Enzo, which is why I ended up putting Ultimate Sharon over normal Enzo. They both are useful when collecting materials, amorphous patterns, which is simply why I have them two so close to each other. They're very useful whenever you need to grab the items that you need, but other than that, they're really not that too much useful. Enzo does get perks as far as his support abilities, but for the most part, I can't really say that I would use them personally. And if I'm down this far in the list about characters that I want to use, then for the most part, I'm going to use a character that I find pleasingly good to look at. Had Enzo free skin was a lot better than Ultimate Sharon's, for sure, I would have definitely been able to put him over her. I play a game to enjoy the game. I'm going to use a character that I enjoy looking at more than a character I don't enjoy looking at. And not only that, her skills do amplify, which makes her skills a lot stronger than her normal base skills. It makes her a lot more bearable to use.
The void is filled with the unexpected. And I enjoy that.
Number 17. Keelan. So Keelan abilities are Void Corrosion, which targets the enemies and fires Void Corrosion. The hit the enemy receives acidic erosion. Additional damage is dealt if the target already has acidic erosion. The number of targets for Void Corrosion increase based on the certain stats. The second ability is Onslaught. Charges forward, dealing damage to penetrated targets. At the end of the charge, it applies a knockback effect to enemies and deals explosive damage. Inflicts acidic delay on enemies hit. While the Adventurous Spirit effect is active, stat count does not increase. And there is a chance to inflict the corrosion acceleration effect on enemies. On the right there, you can pretty much see what acidic erosion is and what corrosion acceleration is. His third ability is Hunting Time, grants the Adventurous Spirit effect. While under the Adventurous Spirit effect, the stat count of Onslaught does not decrease, and using Onslaught inflicts the corrosion acceleration effect on enemies. Corrosion acceleration deals damage to enemies upon expiration. His last ability is Tremor. If enemies within range have acid decay, deals damage proportional to the amount of acid decay stacks. If there are no enemies within range or don't have acid decay, increase the amount of onslaught attacks. His passive skill is Erosion. Using a skill increases the acidic infusion level and grants the agility effect to yourself after a certain number of uses. If the non-combat state is maintained, the acidic infusion level gradually decreases and the agility effect is removed. I do believe Keelan might be a little bit high on this list just basically due to recency bias. Keelan abilities are really cool. While I do think they could do a lot more damage, it's still really fun to use his abilities, especially his dash ability, because you can really dash as many times as you want up in the air or side to side if you want to. I think that's about it. Keelan does need a little bit more, I guess you can say, tweaks to make him a lot better. Like, for one, can we have his dash ability not take so long to replenish? He's a very fun character to use whenever you're using his abilities. I'm not asking to be able to spam his abilities or whatnot, but I would definitely like to use his abilities more than once per mission. And by abilities, I mean his dash ability. Do I think we need to be able to spam it? Of course not. But I do think it would be nice if we can be able to use it a lot more than what we normally can now. And unfortunately, that's pretty much it as far as Keelan. I wish I could say more about him. I wish I could give you a reason why I have him so high up on this list, but honestly, I think it's just recency bias and the fact that he fits my playstyle. He's more gun-ho, straightforward. All his abilities deal with dealing damage towards an enemy. I just don't think he's the best character to have when you're trying to build a squad. He's more focused on himself, and the people that use his character isn't really helping the squad out in any type of way other than just getting high DPS. Do I think he's a bad character? Not at all. Do I think he's a great character? Not at all again. I think he's just somewhere in the middle, which is why he's ranked somewhere in the middle on my list. I do think they did a great job when designing his character. I mean, just listen to the music you get whenever you have him. I mean, like somebody was in the studio. But the only problem I have is that he's only a solo play character and he doesn't even do that much good whenever you're dealing with mobs. So the fact that he isn't really a good mobbing character, or I should say he isn't the best mobbing character, but he also isn't the best team character, or in fact, he isn't really a team character at all. So I can't really put him higher on this list, but that's Keelan for you, the solo assassin.
Target confirmed.
Number 16, Haley. As far as Haley abilities go, you have Kyro Round, which fires a Kyro round at enemies in front to deal damage and inflict Kyro damage. Targets with Kyro stacks receive additional damage and lose 1 stack when hit by Haley's firearm attack. Her next ability is Storm Snare, unleashes a chill vortex around her, knocking back hit targets and firing a massive freezing beam in the direction of crosshairs. The third ability is Cold Fury, grants Haley Cold Fury every second. The Cold Fury effects gradually decreases her movement speed, but greatly increases her firearm and skill critical hit rates and firearm penetration. When Cold Fury reaches maximum stacks, Haley becomes immune to knockdown and gains an increase to her firearm and skill crit hit damage. However, when using roll or grappling hook, the stacks decrease. Her last skill is interchangeable by the mod that you have. I have the super cool Kraber round, which equips a unique weapon. It grants self super cool, which increases weak point damage. When hitting an enemy with the unique weapon, slightly increases attack and inflicts additional chill damage. It reduces super cool stacks upon firing, but grants stacks upon successful weak point attacks. Her passive skill is Safe Strategic Retreat. Proportional to the distance between the target and Haley, the weak point damage decreases the closer it is to the target and increases the further it is. So I'm going to tell you guys right now, the sole reason why Haley is at number 16 is how good she is when using her against bosses. That is the only reason why Haley is at number 16. She isn't really the right person to use when you're trying to do anything as far as mobbing. Other than the fact that Haley can use her super cool Kraber round and her second ability to do high DPS damage against bosses, Haley is not the character to use. Her chill ability makes her slow, so it's not really good to use whenever you're trying to get away from enemies, and it consumes MP consistently while it's on. The fact that she's so high up on this list is a true testament of how good she is when using her with fighting bosses. I mean, just how good she is, just look at this quick demonstration I have with this boss.
Gently duck. Shield down. You're going to feel a little chilly.
And just like that, the boss is down. If it wasn't for how good she is when dealing with bosses, I really wouldn't be talking about her. She will really be at the bottom of the list, but you just can't get over the fact of how good she is at killing these bosses. I don't think there's much more to say with Haley other than the fact that she is a beast at boss farming. I will say that Haley is a solid character, which is why she made it to the middle of this list.
Oh, my beloved daughter, Daya. Hold on a little longer. Your mom will save you no matter what.
Number 15, Glay. So the first one out of Glay's 4 skills is Predator Instinct. So she enters a frenzy state, and frenzy state firearm attack gradually increases based on how long the firearm is fired. Her second ability is Life Siphon. This deals damage to targets within range and recovers HP. HP recovery amount increases based on the number of enemies hit, and frenzy state deals increased damage proportionally to HP, and non-frenzy state gains vigor. Vigor stacks proportionally to the number of enemies hit. Her third ability is Increased Sensory. When in frenzy state, applies maximized lethality, during which bullets are not consumed. When in non-frenzy state, applies maximized recovery, during which life spear generated is increased. Her last ability is Massacre. So Massacre equips a unique weapon. The number of bullets loaded is affected by the amount of power of life owned. When hitting an enemy with the unique weapon, deals damage and inflicts additional effects. And frenzy state increases additional damage proportionally to HP, and non-frenzy state inflicts stun on enemies that are hit. And her passive skill is Thirst, so she cannot have shield or MP. A non-frenzy state reduces incoming damage. Defeated enemies have a chance to drop life spears, which upon contact grants power of life. Upon acquiring power of life, recovers HP. As you see on the right here, life spear has a spawn rate of 30% chance. Health recovery amount is max HP times 4%. Duration is 8 seconds, and power of life obtained amount is 1. Glade is honestly one of my favorite characters, and the reason why she's at 15 right now is only because she has an ultimate version. Glade's abilities is purely on attack damage, and it only makes sense because she's the mother that wanted her daughter protected. I don't really want to go into too much detail about Glade right now because I will be talking about her a little later in this list, but for the most part, Glade is a really cool character. Glade fits my playstyle perfectly, and I think Glade's positioning just comes down to all the other characters that comes after her is a little bit more better. And Glade's positioning not only just comes from the fact that she has an ultimate version, but also because her abilities just aren't as good as the later characters on this list. Glade's ability fit her, and as somebody who likes to run and gun like me, that doesn't necessarily mean that her abilities fit me. There's really not much that I would change about Glade. She does crazy damage whenever there comes to boss farming. She doesn't really have any abilities that are good for mobbing, but at the same time, that's okay because her abilities with boss farming kind of overcompensates for that. She's a very solid team player. I don't think anybody will be mad if they seen that they had a Glade or ultimate Glade on their team with them. Glade also has one of the best backstories in this game, and had her abilities fit me a little bit more, I think Glade would have been a lot higher on my list. But I don't really have too much bad to say about Glade. I think her passive kind of makes her a little bit more even as compared to all the other characters. Her passive just nerfs her just enough so that she's not too overpowered as far as all the other characters, because had Glade had shields and MP that you can collect, I think Glade character would have been top 1, and I don't think that there would have been any other character that would have came close to her. Glade is one of those characters that the first Descendants creators did right.
Wanna feel a chill?
Number 14, Viessa or Viessa. I actually don't know how to say her name. The first 4 of Viessa's skills is Ice Shards. This fires Frost Shards to deal damage to hit enemies and burst damage to nearby enemies. This inflicts Ice Shackle on hit enemies. Her second ability is Cold Bloodness. This gains Cold Bloodness when using the skill. There are mods that you can use to switch this skill. Her main ability is that she creates this ice aura around herself, and when she runs, it leaves an ice trail, and if enemies walk over that ice trail, they become frozen. But right now, the mod that I have equipped with Viessa changes her to Cold Bloodness. Her third ability is Cold Snap. This launches Chill toward the front, inflicts damage and Ice Shackle on enemies that come into contact with Chill. Her fourth and final ability is Blizzard. This creates a blizzard at a designated location. Enemies within the blizzard take continuous damage. When the blizzard ends, it explodes and deals burst damage to nearby enemies. This inflicts Ice Shackle on hit enemies. Viessa's passive skill is Ice Spear. Upon using this skill to put an enemy into an Ice Shackle stage, creates an ice spear that flies around nearby. The ice spear that is created flies at a nearby enemy, dealing damage to the hit enemy and burst damage to nearby enemies. The hit enemy is inflicted with Ice Shackle. Ice Shackle decreases the speed and increases in stage when the effect stacks. If you were here since the beginning, you know that Viessa was my favorite character. She's been my favorite character since the beginning of the game, and I'm talking about all the way at the demo stage. I like all of Viessa's ability except her third one. I think her third one was an ability that the developers just got lazy on when they made it, because it doesn't really do anything, and maybe it's just because I just don't like the ability. So why is Viessa at number 14? Once again, it's mostly because she has an ultimate phase. I think Viessa's character is just perfect, and she just fits my playstyle all in all. Viessa's Descendant is more in the middle of everything. She has a balance of good mobbing and a balance of being good with boss runs. The reason why Viessa isn't too much higher than a lot of the Descendants on this list is because she doesn't really have, how should I say this, an overwhelming advantage over a certain thing in this game. And what do I mean by that? She doesn't really have an ability that she can one-shot bosses, and she doesn't really have an ability where she can just one-shot a bunch of mobs. Viessa is more balanced in the middle of everything, and I think that's what ultimately hurts her as a Descendant on my list, even though she's one of my favorite characters. I've pretty much found myself playing Viessa just to have fun using her abilities while playing the game. I don't think think anybody will be mad if Viessa is on their team. Though when boss farming, I think people would rather not see a Viessa on their team, but see other characters over her. But that just goes back to what I was saying before, only because Viessa just doesn't have an overwhelmingly great ability to kill bosses fast. She's just more balanced character. If they use her abilities right, she'll be able to slow the boss down in order for the team to make better decisions as far as killing the boss faster. Maybe with a left dick, they slows the boss down so that he can use his ability to kill the boss a lot faster. But that's about it with Viessa. I wouldn't change anything about her other than her third ability. And even though she's ranked 14 right now, Viessa is still one of my favorite characters in this game.
This operation, it's just wiping them all out.
Number 13. Lepic. Lepic's 4 ability is Grenade Throw, which throws a grenade forward, dealing burst damage. His second ability is Overclock. So when he uses his ability, he gains Overclock, which inflicts burn on enemies damaged by Grenade Throw or Overkill. Burn deals continuous damage for a certain period of time. His third ability is Traction Grenade, which throws a traction grenade forward to inflict toad on enemies within range. And his last ability is Increase Efficiency, which equips a unique weapon. Attacking with the unique weapon consumes MP and is unequipped when MP is depleted. Enemies hit by unique weapon bullets take burst damage. Critical hits have a chance to recover MP. MP recovery has a cooldown. Lepic's passive skill is Close Call. Upon receiving fatal damage, gains Close Call. While Close Call is active, grants damage immunity and immobilization. When Close Call ends, recovers HP proportional to own max HP. I don't think anybody will be mad at this decision right now. Once again, the reason why Lepic is so low on this list is only because he has an ultimate version. Lepic Descendants just checks all the boxes. Lepic is great for mobbing and even better for boss runs. The thing that separates Lepic from being higher on this list will be his last ability, because we know that Ultimate Lepic has a better last ability than Lepic. Lepic Descendant is one of the definitions of gun ho. And once again, I don't think that there's anything that I would change about Lepic's Descendant. I think his traction grenade is just great when dealing with enemies as far as mobbing, because then you can gather them all in one place and they can't attack you, and you and your teammates can attack one spot, killing all the enemies that are gathered in that one spot. I think Lepic's addition to the team is only good because for the most part, Lepic abilities benefit the team. There's not really anything bad that I would say about Lepic other than the fact that he's pretty slow. He's not the fastest moving Descendant, which kind of makes it a little bit annoying when you do have faster Descendants. But I mean, he has robotic arms, so I can't really blame him for moving so slow.
What do you get when you mix water and RK? Of course.
Number 12. Valve. The first ability out of Valve's 4 abilities is Bubble Bullet. Fires a bouncing bubble bullet. Where the bubble bullet impacts, it creates a small puddle at the point of collision. Enemies who touch the small puddle take continuous damage and are afflicted with laundry. The bubble bullet explodes upon hitting an enemy or after bouncing a maximum number of times, dealing burst damage on nearby enemies. Burst damage increases with the number of times bubble bullet bounces. The second ability is Plop Plop. Forms a big puddle at designated location, emerges from the big puddle and inflicts knockdown on nearby enemies. Enemies standing in the big puddle receive continuous damage and are inflicted with laundry. The skill cooldown decreases proportionally to the number of enemies inflicted with knockdown. Her third ability is Clean Up, which activates Liquefied State. While liquefied, does not collide with enemies and creates a waterway on the ground. Enemies standing in the waterway can take continuous damage and are inflicted with laundry. In the liquefied state, cannot jump or use skills. And her last ability is Laundry Bomb, which equips a unique weapon. It will be unequipped when the duration ends or all the bullets have been used. The projectile impact of the unique weapon creates a laundry bomb, dealing continuous damage and inflicting toad on nearby enemies with laundry. Continuous damage increased based on the number of enemies with laundry. And finally, Valve's passive skill is Supply Moisture. And this is my passive skill that I have on Valve because of the mod that I have with her. When using skills while standing on water, increase firearm crit rate, skill critical hit rate, and skill duration, which also increases the attribute trigger rate of firearms. Puddles created by skills are also considered to be water. So on top of the rest of Valve's skills, this Supply Moisture just makes it even better to use Valve. Valve's fast pace and skills allow her to just become an AoE treasurer, which is why Valve is so high up on this list. You can create as much puddles as you want and stack them on top of each other. As enemies are walking through the puddle, they are getting damaged, and Valve's first 3 ability all put puddles of water on the ground. Valvi is a nightmare for mobs of enemies because in order for them to get to you, they have to walk through puddles of water, which meaning they're not touching you without being damaged first. Valvi is fast paced. She's able to jump around, move around, and she has an ability that turns her into literal water in order for you to just glide through the stage, leaving a water trail behind you. Valvi's abilities have low cooldown, so you can use them pretty much as you want. And the main thing about Valvi that is so cool is her supply moisture mod. This increases your firearm critical hit rate, your skill critical hit rate, and your skill duration. I pair that with my enduring legacy because it adds a 20% increase to my critical hit rate. And with my enduring legacy already having a firearm critical hit rate at 53.5%, that boosts it up to 73.5%, which is pretty much saying that as long as I'm standing in some form of water, I'm pretty much going to have a critical hit on 75% of the bullets that I shoot, which on 75% of the bullets that I shoot, I'm going to do 201.3% damage, which just makes her a freaking beast to use, especially if you have a great weapon. With Valvi, I really don't have anything to change about her. She fits my playstyle perfectly, and the only reason why she is so low right now is because she has an ultimate version.
Let me tell you how I managed to come back from the ruins.
Number 11, Ultimate Ajax. So Ultimate Ajax pretty much has the same skills as normal Ajax, so I'm not going to go over that again. So I'm just going to explain why Ajax is number 11. And I think it'll be easier if I explain why Ajax isn't a lot higher on this list. And for me, the only reason why Ajax isn't a lot higher on this list just comes down to the fact that Ajax just doesn't fit my playstyle. With that being said, I am not discrediting Ajax. If I had to use Ajax, I would gladly use him proudly. Ajax is the ultimate defense character. He has great health, he has great defense. All his abilities help the team out in a way that no other Descendant can. And if it wasn't for the rest of these Descendants being a lot more fitting towards my playstyle, Ultimate Ajax would be a lot higher on this list. I have virtually nothing that I would change about Ultimate Ajax. I wouldn't get mad if I'm doing a boss run and I see an Ajax on the team. I also have fun playing him when doing his level 40 runs. I think I'm starting to sound like a broken record when I say this. And what I mean is, I don't think that there's anything wrong with not wanting to change a character and having him high up on your list. And I think that just goes to the testament of just your playstyle. Had I had a more defensive playstyle, Ultimate Ajax would have been number 1 on my list. Ultimate Ajax is just perfect, but ultimately perfect just puts him at 11. So we have reached the top 10. If you made it to this point of the video, you probably noticed that I'm not really pointing out any negative for Descendants. I'm more pointing out more positives. And that's because with this list, there's not many negatives to point out. When it came down to these top 10s, I mean, these characters are literally divided by margins. And you might notice that the reason I'm putting one Descendant over another one now is preferably just playstyle. There's really not nothing wrong with these Descendants and why they're listed the way they are. It's just more so that I would use one character over the next. I also just want to point out, if you made it to this point of the video, you the GOAT. And if you made it to this point of the video and you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button. But let's move on to the top 10.
Are you ready to be shocked?
Number 10, Bunny. Breaking in the top 10, Bunny is at number 10 for me. The first of Bunny's 4 abilities are Thrill Bomb. This creates a thrill bomb that targets the nearest enemy within range, dealing damage. This damage increases proportionally to the amount of electricity. It inflicts electrocution on enemies hit. Her second ability is Speed of Light. Always moves by sprinting and increases sprint speed. Gains Speed of Light. Speed of Light additionally gains electricity while moving. Her third ability is Lightning Emission. This activates the lightning emission state, deals damage to nearby enemies when moving a certain distance, increases damage proportional to the amount of electricity, inflicts electrocution on enemies hit. Her last ability is Maximum Power. Discharges electricity forward, deals damage on enemies that come into contact with electricity, with the damage increasing gradually based on the discharge time. Ends when electricity runs out. Bunny's passive skill is Rabbit's Foot, deals damage to nearby enemies upon landing after a double jump, gains electricity proportional to the travel distance. If there is no movement for a certain period, electricity is gradually consumed. I don't think this is an understatement when it comes to this game that Bunny is one of the best characters to use. The only reason why Bunny is not so great for me is because Bunny has trash health and trash defense. Bunny is a descendant that you have to be on the run all the time. In order for Bunny to be useful, you pretty much have to focus on her abilities, meaning that your gun typically doesn't matter when you're using Bunny. If you're going to main Bunny, you're going to have to focus on increasing her skill power, her skill cooldown, and her skill range. And if you do that successfully, Bunny will be the ultimate character for you, just as long as you don't get hit. And that is the only downside about Bunny. I love using Bunny whenever I do have to use her, but I focus on a lot on my weapons, which is honestly why Bunny just isn't in the top 5 for me. You also have to think that she has an ultimate version too. So when using Bunny, it doesn't really make sense to use her normal version because she has an ultimate version, but that still doesn't take away from the normal version of Bunny. As far as mobbing, Bunny is one of the best, if not the best person to use. And she's not really the best when it comes to bosses, but at the same time, she does hold up her ground. The only problem with Bunny, her high attack power and high speed come with a great cost with her defense and health, but I would gladly take those odds. And Bunny the speedster has ran herself into 10th place.
Oh, my beloved daughter, Daya. Hold on a little longer. Your mom will save you no matter what.
Number 9, Ultimate Glay. Ultimate Glay abilities is the same as Glay, so I'm not going to go through her abilities again. And I don't think this was too much of a sneak to put Ultimate Glay at number 9. I have nothing but high praise for Glay. I mean, I had a lot of fun while using Glay, so it only makes sense. Glay's abilities are great, and Ultimate Glay only just makes her abilities even stronger. If you build your Ultimate Glay right, while doing boss runs, you can literally one-shot the boss. When using her skill, Increase Sensory, and then pairing it with her ultimate skill, Massacre, it literally uses Massacre as much as it wants for the whole duration of Increased Sensory. And the only reason why Ultimate Glay isn't higher on this list is because every other descendant after her is just a little bit better for me. I think Ultimate Glay fits my playstyle perfectly, and if I had to use her again for another mission or a boss run like that, I wouldn't be mad to use her. If this game ever comes out with PvP, Ultimate Glay is going to be my main character to use, and I think a lot of people would feel the same. Ultimate Glay is the ultimate mother, and for that she goes into the number 9.
So, what's my role? Cook or arsonist?
Number 8, Blair. Blair's first of his 4 abilities is Blaze Up. This spews fires and creates a flame zone on the ground. Enemies standing in the flame zone receive continuous damage and are inflicted with burn. His second ability is Extinguish, which recovers MP based on the number of flame zones created on the battlefield and grants Taste of Aggression on recovery. Flame zones summoned earlier are retrieved first. His third ability is Burn Taste. This fires a flame forward. Enemies hit by the flame could take continuous damage and are inflicted with burn. His last ability is Deadly Cuisine. This fires a giant fireball forward. On explosion, the giant fireball deals burst damage to nearby enemies and divides into multiple small fireballs, which create additional explosions. Small fireballs deal burst damage and inflict burn on nearby enemies and create flame zones. Blair's passive is Pitmaster. When attacking enemies inflicted with burn, increases skill critical hit damage, increases skill critical hit rate based on the number of flame zones created on the battlefield. Now, this might be the first controversial rank that I have on this list, and the only thing that I can really tell you is that Blair is just fun to use for me. His abilities are great, it all fits for him. Using Blair is just perfect for mobbing as well. Blair might not be great when running boss runs, but that's why I don't really have him at number 1. Blair is just a fun character to use. I don't know if it's just the fact that he's a fire character, but Blair is really fun to use, and I don't really have much more to say about that. Blair doesn't really have anything in my eyes that needs to be changed, and I'm just ready for Ultimate Blair to come out. And the best way I can kind of put this into picture is that Blair's worst ability is his flamethrower, which kind of doesn't make sense because it's a freaking flamethrower. I think Blair is a real sleeper character, and I hate that I don't see more people using him. And trust me, I'm with you, it makes me mad to have to put Blair this high on the list, but facts are facts. I can't really put anybody over him that I didn't put over him now. So with that being said, the Deadly Cook has cooked himself into 8th place.
Do as I say, if you want to live.
Number 7, Freyna. Freyna's 4 abilities are Venom Trauma, which fires a toxic bullet, dealing damage to hit enemies. The toxic bullet explodes, creating a toxic puddle and inflicting room 0 trauma on those who it hits. Room 0 trauma deals continuous damage and applies panic to nearby enemies. Her second ability is Defense Mechanism, which grants plague body armor, inflicts room 0 trauma on the attacking enemy. Room 0 trauma deals continuous damage and applies despair to nearby enemies. Her third ability is Putrid Venom, which throws poison to create a toxic swamp. Enemies that touch the toxic swamp are inflicted with room 0 trauma and venom soaked. Venom soaked enemies leave toxic footprints as they move. Toxic footprints applies to room 0 trauma to enemies on contact. Room 0 trauma deals continuous damage and applies decay to nearby enemies. Her last ability is Venom Baptism, which equips a unique weapon, unequipped after all bullets are consumed or after a certain period of time has passed. Hit enemies by the unique weapon, bullets are inflicted with room 0 trauma. Room 0 trauma deals continuous damage and applies nightmare to nearby enemies, which I just want to point out the damage that this unique weapon does is skill power times 768.9%. Freyna's passive skill is Contagion Links. When an enemy afflicted with room 0 trauma is killed, it spawns a toxic puddle. Enemy that steps in toxic puddle are inflicted with room 0 trauma. Room 0 trauma deals continuous damage and applies toxic reaction to nearby enemies. Basically, with Freyna's passive skill, as long as you have an enemy that is killed with the room 0 trauma, what happens is that they're going to deal room 0 damage to the next nearby enemy or enemies. With that being said, as long as you continuously have enemies running after you, those enemies are going to be inflicted with room 0 trauma, and room 0 trauma does continuous damage while it's inflicted on an enemy, which pretty much means is that all the enemies are just going to continuously die. Freyna is the most perfect descendant when it comes to mobbing, and I love Freyna. And the crazy part is, if you've been following me this whole journey and you knew the moment that I used Freyna, how I switched from my favorite character being from Viessa to Freyna, then you understand what I mean by when I say I love to use Freyna. And the only reason why Freyna isn't higher on this list is because she has an ultimate version. Freyna's abilities are just perfect. I wouldn't change anything about her. Not only can Freyna handle large mobs, she also holds her own on boss runs. Her ultimate ability, Venom Baptism, is really good. It does high DPS to bosses and it doesn't take a lot to use. I feel like the cooldown on it is just perfect, and if you increase your cooldown on your descendant, oh my goodness. The only thing that's bad with Freyna is that there are other descendants that are just a little bit better than her, and I do believe all this will make sense to you as I talk about the rest of these descendants. So the dominator of Venom, Freyna, is rank 7.
Wanna feel a chill?
Number 6. Ultimate Viessa. Ultimate Viessa skills are pretty much the same as Viessa skills, so I'm not going to go through her skills. But what I will say is that everything that I've said about Viessa is just amplified with Ultimate Viessa. With being at the top 6 right now, it's going to be really hard for me to rank these characters. The only thing that I have to remind you guys watching is that I'm ranking these characters based off who I would use. With Ultimate Viessa being at number 6, that means that there are only 5 other characters that I would use over her. And I will tell you this, even though Viessa is at number 6, that there are 5 characters above her, one of those descendants isn't really above her because I would use him over her. He's really there because of how his abilities work. With that being said, there's really only 4 other descendants that I would use over Ultimate Viessa, and there's a solid reason why. I think this is self-explanatory why Viessa is so high on this list. Viessa is just an all-around balanced character, and I wish I could say something bad about her, but I just can't. Viessa deserves this spot, and when I talk about the next person on this list, I will let you guys know that these 2 people are interchangeable, meaning that Viessa very well can be top 5. I don't really have much more to say. The Absolute Zero has a cold spot in my heart at number 6.
Are you ready to be shocked?
Number 5. Ultimate Bunny. Ultimate Bunny has the same skills as Bunny, so I'm not going to go through all of her skills again, but I will say that Ultimate Bunny had to be in the top 5. I don't think it's an understatement to say that within anybody's top 5, Ultimate Bunny is going to be one of those positions. Ultimate Bunny is the perfect character to have when you're doing any type of mission. Her fast speed, high DPS and skill damage, and just overall good looks makes her the perfect character to use. Ultimate Bunny takes Garner status to a whole new level. Though I didn't use her as much much. I remember when Ultimate Bunny first dropped, everybody had her, and there's just not really much more to say. Ultimate Bunny is a solid top 5 pick as far as Descendants in this game, and anybody who has anything different to say, I can truly say this confidently that 1, they're trying to be different, or 2, they have never played this game, because you cannot discredit how good this Descendant is. The team that used to steal has stolen her spot in the top 5.
This operation, it's just wiping them all out.
Number 4, Ultimate Lepic. I know this is kind of a weird thing to say, but I just noticed that he actually has his eyes poking out of his armor, and now it's creepy. But Ultimate Lepic pretty much has the same skills as Lepic, so I'm not going to talk about all his skills, but what I will mention is his last skill changes. His last skill, Overkill, instead of it being an explosive weapon, what it does, it fires this orb-like structure, almost like a planetary bomb. Enemies in the zone are getting hit with continuous damage, and if you level this damage up, it can do massive damage to bosses. Everything that I said about Lepic is still the same for Ultimate Lepic. He's a great character to use for boss farming and a great character to use for mobbing. Ultimate Lepic is at number 4 because he matches my playstyle. He does great damage to bosses. He's a great person to use for team farming and mobbing. And the fact that I had nothing but praises for Lepic is only a testament to how great Ultimate Lepic is. I think Ultimate Lepic secured his spot in the top 5, and the Iron Will Grenader is at number 4.
My dream is for you all not to get hurt. But nothing at all will get to me.
Number 3, Eugen. So remember how I mentioned that there's a character in my top 5 that I don't necessarily use myself, but his abilities put him in the top 5? That character is Eugen. So Eugen's 4 abilities, his first one is Solidary Healing. It attaches a healing drone to an ally. The drone is dismissed if it stays too far from the target or when its duration expires. The drone grants the continuous healing effect, and upon expiration of the drone's duration, they apply the accelerant effect to allies and the user. This skill recovery increases only when the total amount that make up the skill power reaches a certain amount. His second ability is Restructure Serum. So this fires Restructure Serum forward. Hitting enemies by Restructure Serum are affected with allergy. Attacking enemies with allergy heals nearby allies. Defeating an enemy with allergy further heals the Descendant. This skill recovery increases only when the total amount that make up skill power reaches a certain amount. His third ability is Stimulant Spray. This grants stimulation to nearby allies. Allies receive healing proportional to the number of times they were hit when stimulation ends. This skill recovery increases only when the total amount that make up the skill power reaches a certain amount. And Eugen's fourth and final skill is Duty and Service. Upon use, instantly recovers Eugen's and all his allies HP in the party or squad. It also grants regeneration boost effect. This skill recovery increases only when the total amount that make up skill power reaches a certain amount. And this skill alone almost puts Eugen at top 5. Eugen's passive skill is Stop Overreacting, which significantly reduces the time it takes to rescue allies. Rescued allies gain additional prescription. Eugen's abilities for teamwork puts him at top 5. In fact, it just puts him at top 3. If you have a Eugen on your squad, you can assure yourself that you can just go crazy. You don't have to worry about healing because you know Eugen has your back. Eugen abilities are great for the team. In fact, Eugen's abilities are so great, it doesn't even matter the fact that he can't really mob or kill bosses because Eugen is strictly for the team. Whenever I have a support character in mind, Eugen is that character that comes to mind. This might be a sleeper build for most people playing the first Descendants. And I hate that a lot of people don't have Eugen main. Out of all the defense and support people in this game, Eugen is top 2 and he's not number 2. Eugen can heal himself and his whole squad with one ability. Even if you have 1 HP, he will take you from 1 HP to max HP in a blink of an eye. Having Eugen on your team only benefits your team. Everybody loves healers and Eugen is the best one there is. I just hate the fact that they nerfed Eugen, but still, even after after the nerf, Yujin is still useful. I will tell you this, if you're surprised that Yujin is number 3, I guarantee that you're just sleeping on this man. And like I said, though I might not necessarily use Yujin only because he just doesn't fit my playstyle, I will never discredit this man's abilities. There has been plenty times where me and the team were on the brink of death and Yujin has got us back up to full health. Having Yujin on your team whenever you're doing any type of boss runs or any type of missions that you're under level for just makes these missions and boss runs a lot more easier and more manageable. If I had to create an ultimate team right now, Yujin would be on that team, and that's why Yujin is coming in at number 3.
What do you get when you mix water and RK? Of course.
Number 2, Ultimate Valve. So Ultimate Valve has the same skills as normal Valve, so I'm not going to go through all of those skills with you. The reason why Valve is at number 2 for me is because of her mod Supply Moisture. On top of the fact that all of Ultimate Valve's abilities puts water on the ground, Supply Moisture makes your guns a whole lot stronger. And the fact that I focus on my weapons and I have a maxed out Enduring Legacy, which is the best weapon to me, and then her skills just make that weapon even stronger. I really don't think that you guys understand the amount of damage that I do with that weapon with Valve. Anytime that I'm running a boss run, I am using Ultimate Valve, and that is because other than the person that is ranked number 1, Valve fits my playstyle the most, and her ability allows me to use max damage with my Enduring Legacy. I have fun using her. I have fun using her ability, and it's only right that the Sea of Emerald gets number 2.
Do as I say, if you want to live.
Number 1, Ultimate Freyna. I don't think this comes as a surprise, and it definitely doesn't come as a shocker to me. Out of all the characters on this game, Ultimate Freyna fits my playstyle the most. If I'm doing anything other than boss runs, I am using Ultimate Freyna. Ultimate Freyna is a mob's worst nightmare. I mean, as you know, I have all my guns to level 40, and the person who did that was Ultimate Freyna. Her abilities fit exactly how I play. She is run and gun, her abilities are hit and move, and there's literally not one bad thing that I would say about Ultimate Freyna. Her skills are the same as normal Freyna, so I'm not going to go through all of that with you today, but the name Nightmare Dominator is exactly fitting for her, which is why she made it to top 1. Out of all the characters that I've had, Ultimate Freyna has the most play time with me, and that is saying something because I beat the game playing as Viessa the whole time. And you know what, I'm just going to go out and say this, I think Ultimate Freyna might be number 1 on a lot of people's lists, and it makes sense. This is another one of those characters where if Ultimate Freyna isn't top 5 on your list, all I can say is that you're either trying to be different or you just have not played this game. Ultimate Freyna is the funnest character to use in this game, and Color Me Purple, that is the reason why Ultimate Freyna is number 1. That's it. That's my list. I appreciate you guys watching all the way to the end of the video. If you have anything you want to tell me about my list, or if you just want to comment, go ahead and go down in that comment section below and just let me know. If you like the video, please leave a thumbs up. Or maybe if you just like me. But I'm not going to hound on you more about subscribing and stuff like that, and turning on the post notification bells and stuff like that. If you want to, you want to do it. But I'm gonna go ahead and get up out of here. Until next time, I will see you guys. Peace.